computer. Okay. Hello, Joe.
Oh, hey. I should have put a virtual background.
No, it's great.
It's fine. Okay.
It's just your world. Nothing too weird. Hello.
Hello.
My background is not this virtual. This is your actual gallery show.
That's my
here.
work. I did that.
Yeah. You did it. So, okay. Just wanted to kind of give people a little bit more of an insight as to who you are. Your show's coming down on Saturday, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about how you got started making art, where you're from, that kind of stuff.
I'm from Sedalia, Missouri. I was born in Kansas City, grew up in Sedalia. That's not really that important, that part. But I got started making, I've always, as every artist is gonna say, anytime you ask them, how did you get started? I've always made art.
Right.
I think at one point, this might not be a real memory, but I remember I was coloring in a coloring book, and I think someone made a comment about not staying in the lines when I was really young, and I said, whatever, I don't care. And then, that's kind of goes into, I think a lot of my work is I don't care kind of. But I started really focusing on my painting probably 2007, I want to say, when I graduated high school. I was working in high school. Also, I started kind of more experimenting with painting and stuff around 15. And then around 2007, when I went to State Fair Community College, and I knew the artist or the professors there, Paul Allen, Don Looper. I'd known them previously just because Sedalia is small, and my mom knows people and but they really took the time. Not that my high school teachers didn't. It's just that was their biggest job. I mean, they are art professors, right? They ran the art department there. So having both of them, Donnie, kind of this more strict, not by the books, but like process.
Yeah.
Versus Paul, who I always thought was more of a, we always referred to him as the mother of the art department there, because he would give you a critique, but it was always really sweet.
Yeah.
Where Donnie would not, if he didn't like it, he would tell you, right? So I would have started August 2007, I think, because I would have graduated high school in May 2007. And so really from there, I just kind of like fell down the rabbit hole. I was already kind of deep in it from, hip hop, graffiti, stuff like that. But they kind of took that aspect of me, and really kind of lassoed it in and said, well, you have these views, but see what you can do on canvas or with painting or with, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think from then on, really, it's just kind of been go. I mean, there have been breaks, but
yeah, sure. But do you feel like, so you talked about graffiti a little bit, hip hop culture. Do you feel like, you and I have talked a lot about sort of like, looking at train cars and finding finding wherever you are in whatever town, like where's the most graffiti you can find or whatever. Do you feel like that? I mean, I know that influences your work, but how early was that sort of in your life?
I mean, hip hop has been in my life way longer than I'd really, as a culture, as a movement, I think longer than I ever even knew. I was actually talking to my mom about it today. I remember in, I think, 4th grade, I wanted to scratch records for a musical show and tell. I didn't get to do that because my teacher, Miss Munsell, was like, no, you can't. No, why? No, that's dumb. You can't do that. She didn't say it was dumb, but she's like, you're going to ruin everything. Like, no.
Right.
So, I mean, that's super early. And I didn't know that was, the sound of records, is just really, really good. And then I spent a lot of time, my mom and I, we were poor, we were low income. I spent a lot of time in the Boys and Girls Club. I think in those kind of community settings, whether you realize it or not, you form these bonds. And then, so when I discovered hip hop as a whole, as a culture, and I think a lot of it just immediately was already there. I'd
Mhm.
already experienced this kind of community aspect. I've grown up similarly, like, you know, where you have to find ways to escape. You have to, you know, that where you don't have money to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to find things to do. And so I think really once it, you know, graffiti was just as an aspect is I smoked cigarettes. I used to smoke cigarettes. I've never been so addicted to something. There's you watch a lot of documentaries and they call it a virus. It gets into your blood and it never leaves. And
Yeah.
it's true. I still crave graffiti more than I crave cigarettes. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I've quit both of them,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just, I think it's almost always been there. And it just took a catalyst of discovery, of learning what it actually becomes, you know, like
Yeah.
listening to Saul Williams in high school. His book, The Dead MC Scrolls, has this really, it's a book of poems that Saul Williams did. But the beginning, he wrote this little,
I know we saw a little Otto. Oh, there he is.
Was he?
Dad, what's happening?
He has this story at the very beginning of his book, The Dead MC Scrolls, where he talks about he's going down into the subways of New York, the abandoned subways, and he all of a sudden he finds these cans of graffiti, and these cans of spray paint, because graffiti is just in the can, right? And he's shaking them. He's like, wait, that's not right. And he opens it up and it's got these Dead MC Scrolls. And then it goes into the book. But like, that right there really stuck to me. And I'm like, okay, the subways. I don't know anything about subways. I grew up in Missouri.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, you know, I'm like Googling stuff and like trying to figure it out. I'm checking out graffiti forums and da 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 da. And then I find Style Wars. And then that's it. I mean, everything else is just like, oh, and I watch Style Wars for.
Yeah.
I still watch it. I mean, I watch it once a year. It's just honestly, from a documentary perspective, I think it's kind of a perfect documentary. It does everything it's supposed to, but.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool. And I think you can definitely tell that music is like influences your work. And we talked a little bit about like the songs that you were listening to when you were making stuff, or even just like when you look at a painting now of thinking of like, what song does this bring up? And we talked a little bit about the Hackers soundtrack, which I just had this random conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago where we were talking about what our favorite soundtracks are for movies. And I was like, let's see, probably The Big Chill and like, you know, like Stand By Me and like some of these like, you know, whatever
classics.
And then I was like, oh, what about, and she was like, Hackers. And I went, yeah, like we both totally agree.
It's so good. I've actually been kind of listening to it lately, and it's like nuts. It's such
it's great.
Flawless, like as many problems as that movie
has. Sure, of course.
I love it to death, but like that soundtrack is like a pinnacle of the time. Like that is a best of soundtrack.
Yes.
1995, 94.
That's my high school time. So like, I mean, for me, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was my high school time too.
Listen, it's fine. Well, I want to kind of walk around in here. I'll just gonna hold my computer kind of awkwardly. But first I want to say I met your mom today. She was delightful.
She's a lot of fun.
And the people who have come in to see this show have just been like, who is this? This is really interesting. Cool. Wow. So there's been a lot of interest in, you know, some kids who've been like, can I walk on the art? It's on the floor. And I'm like, try not to, but it's probably okay if you do it.
Accidents happen.
Accidents happen. So I'm just gonna kind of do this. So we have this piece on the floor here.
Oh yeah.
And which has clay and pencil marks and looks like marker.
Yep.
Paint.
Charcoal and oil paint. Yeah. That's like the most basic of all my pieces, I think, as far as ingredients go.
Yeah. Ingredients. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And then we got this piece behind me here.
Oh yeah. Man, these are good paintings. Who did these?
I know, right? I don't know. This guy is like really likes his own work. Just kidding.
Sometimes. This one I really like. Yeah.
Yeah. This one's really long.
I couldn't hang the rest. I mean, the majority of my work in general, I would never want in my own house. I feel like a lot of artists probably feel that way though. Like
I think so. Yeah. I did an art tour of my house and I was like, here's a little piece I made. Okay, anyway, move it over here. Look at this. It's like I felt weird kind of even having a couple in. Another one, this one's really big. This one's on
Wood panel,
wood
plywood.
panel. Yeah,
it's like real crappy wood. I mean, I know that's a real high selling point there. I really sold it.
I know,
but,
good job, Joe. But
well,
I mean, I think that when you're close up to it, you can see how, like this is what, paper towel or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just laid on top here, so it kind of looks almost like duct tape. This part
I mostly let
looks like wax, kind of.
Yeah, some of those are just reactions of various paint products or ink products with themselves.
Yeah.
Like with the paper towel and the paint and stuff, or paper, I do use glues sometimes, but I found a lot of times if it'll work, using the paint as a glue does a lot of really, because I'm gonna rip it away most of the time, right? Like that's kind of the goal.
Right. You can see kind of that happening here too. Like this was
exactly.
lifted up.
I think it's kind of, I mean, if someone wanted to with one of my pieces over time, they could like a really long-term advent calendar or whatever it's called, where but you could especially on this one, like that big streak I'm pointing, like you can see my finger, this big streak in the middle, that one right there. I mean, you can basically pop that, you can stick your finger in that and you could rip it off and there would be a different, it would change the whole thing.
Well, it's a really neat, like the buildup of layers is really interesting. And I think this is the kind of work that, it's really big. But it's nice to get a step back to be able to see, like how big it is. But then when you come closer, you notice new things every time. So every time I've been in here talking to somebody about your work or whatever, we just notice more and more stuff. Like this almost looks like it's rope, but it's not.
No.
It's just the texture of charcoal or whatever it is, paint on top of paper towel, I think that's been sort of wetted and then put on top of the canvas. And so it's just kind of like,
I actually think that specific mark making, that charcoal is charcoal that I made myself.
Oh, interesting.
So it's just super easy to do. If anyone, you just make a fire and you put like some wood in a can and forget about it.
And forget about it.
Literally, because then it'll burn away and be fine.
I got this piece here. This is what
I really like this one too. I think this one.
This one's cool. I love this green little piece
that
right there.
I believe that is. So I think for a few of these, especially, they were all loose canvases, and I stretched them, built the frame, stretched them, which is very much out of my wheelhouse. So, but I think it worked out really well, and I think it's something I will probably honestly continue to do with a good amount because I think it looks good. But a lot of them, so I'll staple it to a wall. I'll staple the loose canvas to a wall. I'll get to a point where I'm tired of working on it and I want to work on something else, and so I'll just staple that on top of it, staple the next meeting on top, and rinse, repeat. So then you get those hard edges sometimes where it's just because there wasn't
something else over it. Interesting. There's actually
like,
a little Alfred hair on here too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Because that one definitely you can see just under that green line all those drips.
Yeah.
So there was a canvas there that I was working on that all those drips came from.
Yeah. Cool.
It's fun,
Yeah, agreed. There's this little guy.
That's a good one.
I really like this one.
I think that's Jordan. I think that's her favorite. My wife's favorite.
It's a good one. And it's like I think it's like 11 and a half by 10 and a half or something.
Yeah.
That's the outside. Joe's not responsible for that, although he might claim that he is.
Well, it wasn't me.
It's this guy.
This town's, if you're a graffiti artist in this town, you should stop because this town is way too small to be risking that kind of crap.
It's definitely strange to not see more graffiti around, but
yeah, you gotta go to the cities. There's some really nice I think some nice line work in that one.
I like this one. This is called Giant Steps. Giant Steps.
Is it who originally, hang on, I'm on my computer, I can look. I want to say, was it originally Dave Brubeck? But John Coltrane. Wow, I feel real dumb. Yeah, it's just like it's this ridiculously incredible song. Uh and for some reason that line work is very jazzy to me. Not
Yeah.
in like a I don't in fancy jazzy, but just in a, almost random and a reactionary sense,
Yeah.
What else we
This
got?
one's called Not a Contour Map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's don't although
It's
I
not.
does it probably makes people think, well, maybe it is. Where is it a contour map of?
Exactly. And there's two others in the window, which I don't think we can see with my computer.
No, I don't. That seems
Nope.
dangerous.
I know, right? I like my computer, but there are two in the window as well that you can see from the outside.
Yes.
So yeah, so I think, what's nice is that there is maybe my internet connection is, am I still here?
Yeah, you're good.
I think sometimes like a show, like most folks who come in and they're like, what's in that room? They're like really intrigued, because I think your work looks a lot different than some of the other stuff that we've had in this particular space, our solo gallery space. And I don't see
it's
a
been
lot.
like this shows you got this year. I mean, I know it makes me sound like I'm really bragging about, but like I feel very privileged to be around some of the people that are getting a shot in this space. So
yeah. I mean, Pat O's work is so good, and like that show was just phenomenal. And
it seems like Pat's doing like a bunch of different stuff now now too, and like
well, he talked to me about that he was like just getting into doing like Procreate stuff during his show, and now he's like doing all of this awesome like animation. I was like, okay,
it's been like 3 months. What
I don't know
time, but like that's insane.
I know.
And obviously Sean's show was ridiculous.
Yeah, Sean's show is great.
Ideally I want Sean. I don't know if he'll listen to this, and I might say this to him at some point, but I would love for him to do something in like the woods and just leave it to forget about, because he's got that weird, like kind of like that like Mimi Monolith art piece, but not that. I don't know. That was kind of weird. But I just think like 100. He has his work in 100 years. If someone like stumbled upon it in the woods, would be like, "Yo, what's this weird like religion?" I just like it's crazy stuff.
But it's so he's like referencing these really sort of interesting, he's like referencing like Mayan ruins kind of, and then also like Frank Lloyd Wright, like who is influenced by that too. So it's sort of like this getting back to basics.
I get this really, whether he intends to or not, I get this incredibly like brutalist, like USSR style buildings, like you see, from it too, and like kind of in an abstracted way. So I really like that. He's a cool guy too. What are you gonna?
He's cool. What can you do? Potters usually are pretty cool. And also sometimes smelly, although he seemed like he was fine, but it's fine.
Well,
I think they would claim that.
I don't mean to slight artists, but I, feel like they're smelly.
Just depends on how long we've been working at a time.
That's true.
That's
true.
Yeah. So anyway, Joe, your show is great. It's up until Saturday.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell folks about, like anything about your process or why you're making stuff? Or
as far as it's so hard. My process is just it just exists. I just kind of do it. And it generally I get in the mood and I go into the studio and I work for however long, 30 minutes, 4 hours, a week straight, and then I won't for I don't know, months sometimes.
Yeah.
And then other times it's just day after day after day.
Yeah.
But as far as making the work, I never have a plan. I might get an idea, right, and then kind of work it, but I don't plan it. And if I don't feel like it's going to come to fruition, I'm not going to sit there and try to I'm not going to sit there and try to force it to work. I just don't. I can't do that. Music, I think, and I don't know about other artists, but there's that age-old question, if you could choose blind or deaf. Obviously neither, right? But it would be, as much as I love color, and I think color is such an important thing, and it has various emotions. I don't believe like I could do any of it without music.
Mhm.
I think I would still create art. I don't think it would be like this. I think I would have went somewhere. I would have more followed my graphic design path that I had originally had, or
Yeah.
something like that. I think music is probably the most important part of my process, if there
Yeah.
was anything. And yeah,
Interesting.
I'm stoked to have been picked,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
with the surrounding artists.
Yeah.
I think this is a great space.
Yeah.
I think, you know, after I don't know, I just think it's just really nice. This is really nice. It just feels good. It's a cool
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like
It's cool.
hard to
Well, yeah.
explain.
And so the whole concept of this room, and I've talked about it a little bit, but it's still new. So I'll just reiterate. The whole idea was to have a solo gallery space where we could feature artists, because so much of our gallery is about, meeting artists where they are. So if they're
Mm,
starting out for the first time, we want to help them with classes, or kind of like, this is how you
yeah.
put your work in a show, this is how you frame it, that kind of thing. And then for folks who are like, I have this collective body of work that I've been working on, and this, I feel like I have a show, there's
Yeah.
a space for that. And then there's also a space for the professional artist who's like, I just love this organization and I want to make sure I'm still a part of it,
I
and
mean, it's
and
great. I
putting in.
mean, it's
So
just
it's kind of throughout someone's career they can be involved. So
I think the community aspects of I don't know if you can hear my dog barking,
yeah, just a
but
little bit.
he's a really sweet guy, but boy, he loves to bark.
Well, he likes to talk. It's fine.
Well, don't we all? The community aspects, I think, of the art league and like, Artlandish and other things like that, I
Yeah,
think are super important. And I
yeah,
think a lot of times they kind of get overlooked. And I think like stuff like Jabberwocky in town,
yeah,
the things that they're doing, and I got to get in touch because I really want to try to help out somehow.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I think that is that is such a good,
yeah,
like, I don't know, that's like where I want to be. Like
yeah,
that's kind of
totally.
for me. I'm more of a from an art gallery perspective, but like that same kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff. I just think we being sandwiched between St. Louis and Kansas City, I feel like people are kind of like, wow, it's just Columbia.
right.
But like we got stuff here.
Yeah, definitely,
So,
definitely. Yeah,
we
yeah.
just don't have Kansas City barbecue.
Right.
We don't
True.
have
This is
Arthur
true.
Bryant's. I think that's the big one.
That's true. I've only had it one
Yeah.
time because, I'm
Who's the
from.
next show? Is it Nick?
The next show is
Oh,
Byron Smith.
yeah, you're from the Bay.
I'm from the
Oh,
Bay Area. We know
okay.
nothing about
Byron
barbecue
Smith. Okay.
at all, at all. Byron Smith is great. He is like he's a guy who's been in town for, I mean, he grew up here, and he's worked at MU for like 40 years, and he's
I wonder
just
if we
like
met.
this great guy.
I'm so bad with names.
Yeah, so he's great. He's great. So he's coming up
Mm-hmm.
next, but later in the year, we've got Hannah Reeves and Pam Gaynor are doing a fiber show together. We've got Aaron and Nick
Oh, that'll be
Potter are
really
going to
good.
do this like installation show. It's
I
going to
didn't
be
know that it was an
yeah,
installation
it's
show.
going to be rad. Yeah.
I took one of his classes. I feel like I'm just plugging everybody, but like
Yeah. That's fine.
I took one of his classes. It was a video game narratives class, and it was like not only is he an awesome dude, he's a phenomenal professor.
Oh,
So
that's great.
any
Yeah.
kids out there who need
Yeah.
elective or whatever, I don't know how it works.
Yeah. Take that class. Yeah.
But Nick Potter's top tier. So
yeah. He's
yeah,
in my
cool.
bubble. We're like bubble families. So, we're bubble
I
family.
didn't know
there.
that.
Yeah.
We've talked about hanging out, but you know how it's so hard to do things.
I mean, COVID is hard. And also like we all have a lot of stuff going on. We're all parents,
also,
like
leaving the house.
right. Yes, exactly. Well, hey, so here's actually my last question for real, because we could actually just talk forever. We should spare the world. But so you and your wife take care of your son, obviously, but you are your kid's primary stay-at-home parent, right?
Yes, I am.
At least for now. And how has that been, making art and being a parent? Because that's like a big thing that I think about all the time.
It hasn't caused any issues yet.
Okay.
I'm kind of mentally preparing for in the next, well, he's a year and a month.
Yeah.
He's probably going to be walking before we know it. It feels like he wants to.
Oh yeah.
He definitely wants to talk, and I'm not. I'm stoked about that, which I probably will regret saying that. But I'm mentally preparing because I do use a lot of things that aren't like, I wear a mask and I wear gloves and da da da. So
Yeah.
like I can't really have him in the studio.
Right.
But because he goes to bed around 6, because he's still young,
Yeah.
if Jordan and I aren't going to watch something, right now we're watching The Crown, which is phenomenal, but also really boring. And I love it. We're not to Olivia Colman yet, unfortunately,
She's
but
pretty
I
great.
cannot wait because she is the best.
Yeah.
But right now it's been totally fine. If I'm feeling creative in the evening, I just pop out
Yeah.
to the studio.
Yeah.
And the monitor works out there, which is, I think, the biggest thing was my biggest fear was like that I won't be able to hear if something's wrong. But
Yeah.
right now it's fine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's cool. I'm glad that you and Jordan have figured out a way to like prioritize that for you, like that you can share duties and all that kind of stuff. That's cool. I think that's where a lot of the mom artists that I know talk about that as being a struggle of sort of like,
well, I mean,
I'm working and I'm taking care of kids and I'm trying to be an artist. And like, how do I do all this stuff? And
it's one thing I feel like, and maybe this will offend some other stay-at-home dads, and I hope not, but it's not, I haven't had any problems. And frankly, as a guy, the issues that I have are a lot smaller than the issues that moms will run into or the things that moms are required to do. So, it's one of those things like
and
I'm super lucky.
I guess it's true too that you aren't working full time and taking care of a kid and doing art. I mean, not that staying home with your kid isn't work, because it absolutely is, but because I'm still like, how do I fit in art making? I don't know. It's like I'm doing lots of other stuff.
Yeah, you are a parent, you run an art gallery, and you guys have a bookstore. I mean, I'm
insane. Like don't model my behavior.
I mean, it's
what I'm doing is nuts.
It's impressive is what it is. Really, it's pretty badass. So
maybe if I made better art right now, then that would be more.
Who makes good art? All the good artists they've all died.
Oh, come on.
Basquiat dead. Frankenthaler dead. Those are the only two I can think of.
Frankenthaler.
I'm just kidding. There's plenty of good alive ones.
Yeah.
But Frankenthaler was the greatest of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Probably. Pretty awesome. Pretty incredible.
In my book.
Yeah.
And apparently, she died in 2008, and I'm really upset that I could have potentially met her, but I never did.
That's true. Dang it. That's how I feel about Prince. I kind
I'll
of
never
get
to see the Beastie
it.
Boys. Yeah. Because MCA Pat rest.
I know.
Or whatever. I don't know if that probably isn't the right, but
I don't know. I don't know. Oh man. All right. Well, Joe, thanks for talking to me. I think you're great, as you know. And I will talk to you later. Everybody come see Joe's show. Except for another couple days.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.